You're winning. You're winning. You're winning.
Hello, and how are you doing? Welcome to another episode of Epic Understanding. You are winning tonight with Kenneth Wilson, a man who decided to grab life by the horns and make it his. But he didn't come into life with the world thrown at his feet. He came at it cracked under his feet. But without further ado, I'm going to bring the man of the moment to the stage. Welcome, Kenny. We're on mute. There we go. I have Kenny and Ryan. I was going to introduce you in a moment, Ryan, but you just popped on up. I'm gonna put you backstage. Look, this is our secret weapon for the night. We're gonna put them backstage. Yeah. Hold on now. Hold on. All right, Kenny.
No, that's all good. We brought friends tonight.
We brought friends. Look, Kenny and friends.
There we go. Yep. How you doing this evening?
I am doing fantastic. Really happy to have you here and excited about your journey. There are so many nuggets of power, truth, and raw grit in your story. I just can't wait for everybody to get to know you a little bit better.
Okay, yeah. And we share and we talk, and I think there's things there that we all relate to, so I always say my story is, we all have stories. My story, it may be similar to other stories, but we have to share our stories because we can learn and grow from them. So that's the goal here. That's what I try to do.
What I like about you is that you're still learning and growing from your own personal journey. A lot of times we get stagnant, right? Especially when we grown and successful. Can't nobody tell us nothing, right? But what I like about you is that you are steady, hitting it hard, looking for the nuggets of truth in your own story so you can continue to blossom and grow into your purpose beyond your current purpose. See, even when you're successful, there is a purpose beyond the one that you're living right now. And that is what I see in your journey. It's very beautiful.
Oh, well, thank you. I mean, we're always learning. And I think we have to acknowledge that first and foremost. Every day, learn and growth. And sometimes it doesn't come in the way as you want it to. We always think of growth as like accomplishing the goals and the things that we set out to do. But to me, it's the little details in life, the small things that we don't consider, sometimes the things that come later after the fact, but I'm always looking for growth. I think we acknowledge that. We acknowledge the shortcomings. We acknowledge the failures, and we take those and we turn, and now what do we do with them is always the question,
I hear you. You've given us some instructions, right? You've given us some instructions right here in this book. Well, 3 books.
Yeah. I mean, again, the goal is to share, so each one of those projects, Black Men Love, we brought Black men together and shared and talked about our concept and perspectives around love. What are our thoughts around love? How do we feel? How do we express? How do we share love? Even going back to the impact of influence, how do we utilize the influence we have in our environments, our communities, even within ourselves and our families and our loved ones? Going back to Suited for Success, how do we share some of these stories? What can we take from our journeys, lessons, and how can we now share them out to the world so that someone else can benefit from those too? So for me, it's just a matter of, I've always been a believer in, like I said, telling our stories. How do we share? My thing is like, what are we doing all this for? What are we going through life for? I don't think it's just for our benefit. I'm a father too. I'm a husband. So it's like, I have to share to them. That's how they're going to learn. Somebody has to take these examples. I didn't go through this stuff just for me. I firmly believe that.
So you are the CEO of Men of Stature. Can you tell us a little bit about that organization?
Yeah, well, Men of Stature is an organization. It's for Black men. Again, me being a Black man, I went to what I know, right? And I always felt that there was strength, there was power, there was value in just men coming together, black men coming together, again, talking, sharing, being together, doing things together, safe together, and how we give back. And so it was really based on that concept, how I interact with the brothers and my friends and family around me. So Men of Stature is really based on three pillars. It's health, mental health, physical health. How do black men, how do we, deal with health, and how can we tackle health and those issues? One thing I call comradeship, which other people would call like fellowship. But again, that's coming together, providing safe spaces to share, being in places and providing, facilitating some of those conversations that we can come together, because black men don't traditionally do that. We haven't had the spaces to be promoted to do that. And the other thing is virtue. How are we living our lives? Are we living our lives with high moral value, with sense of purpose, things like that? And so we group those together and we do things based upon those pillars, really. We share, we give in the community, we try to take care and look out for each other. We try to help each other out, teach each other. And that's all aspects, from older men to younger men. And that's what Men of Stature really is about.
That is very interesting. Let's see who you brought with you today, and let's talk about that. Who is this gentleman that you brought with you today?
Well, it's my God. I'm going to let him introduce himself, because that is my friend. That is my God, my brother, someone who I've never been afraid to say I love him, because I don't think we say that about to each other enough, But that's my brother, Ryan Dunston, man. That's my guy. But I'm going to let him tell y'all who he is, because that's the man right there.
Well, I love you too, King. And I'm Ryan Dunston, as he mentioned. I am a director of community outreach for a mortgage firm by the name of Hometown Lenders. I am a former loan officer. I am a podcaster. I have a podcast by the name of the Ryan Dunston Podcast, Words from a Humble King. I am a member of Men of Stature, which is an honor. That space, one of the safe space for men to be broken, is how I feel when I'm there, right? Because when you I guess one of the topics we're getting ready to get into, but when you're growing up, coming from Kenny, where we come from, you have this false sense of expectation where you have to be perfect, and Kenny's kind of built a space where you can kind of let your walls down a little bit. You're allowed to be imperfect, and you're allowed to fellowship. As broken men should be able to fellowship, which allows you to feel whole, feel relatable, feel like there's a sense of community, so that you can go out in the corporate world and break down some barriers and tear off some chains, some generational chains for your family, right? Kenny, you've done a great job with that, and I'm honored to be a part of not only Men of Stature, but also Black Men Love, the book that we just came up with. So it's been a joy, man. So I guess I'm a father, I'm a husband, I'm an author, former loan officer, current director of community outreach. I wear a lot of hats, but I am a Black man. That's what I like to sum it up as.
Yeah.
All right. I want to pop you over here again, Ken, because you are the man of the moment.
Nah, don't put my face up there.
Really? What? You got to be kidding me. Wait a minute. Bam! What are you talking about?
But
that's the humility.
No, but one commonality, if you see in those things, that I'm not ashamed to say this, none of those were written by me by myself.
Okay, that's fine. Hold on. Put your face up here again. Bam! What are you talking about?
No, but
just FYI, Kenny is going to be with us on Saturday at 12 p.m. Central Standard Time, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're having a men's mental health summit. It is going to be the bomb.com. I cannot tell you how we are going to get down and how many stories we are going to tell. You're going to have to show up and see it for yourself. But when I tell you it's raw, it's good, it's powerful, and you don't want to miss it, that is 100% the truth. Kenny himself is going to be talking to us about misplaced priorities. That is fire. It is fire within itself. There's much more to come. I'll tell you a little bit more about how we're going to go. We're going to go into modern male insecurity. Bam. We're going to go into a man's self worth beyond um, protection, sexual conquest, and providing. We're going to go into a little bit of that. We're even going to get into how the Eastern men show connection and affection towards one another, different than the Western men. Hit it up. We're going to get into some of those relationship questions as well. So, Kenny, although it is not necessarily all about you, and you do not stand alone, Kenny. You stand amongst a band of brothers. Don't tell me about not shining the light on you, because we must shine the light on your story and what you're doing. I mean, you are a crack era baby, and now you have turned that into manhood mentorship. Tell me about turning the light on you and shining the light on you, man. Get out of here. That's what we
Well,
doing.
well, I know, but I'll leave that for y'all. That's what I'll
No.
say. No, because like I really take that approach. For me, working with other people is a huge part of who I am and what I do. I
Okay.
don't want to do it alone. Um, there's to me, like, it's better because we come up. We did this. That's why
Mhm.
when I talked to Ryan, like, we share some of these experiences, and I feel like it's more powerful when we come together and tell the stories, because
Mhm.
the strength in numbers, people see the commonalities in it, and it's like, wait, I
Mhm.
got that too. I see that too. So I do appreciate it, and I feel like once I get to the point where I'm comfortable with the acknowledgments, I feel like I'm stagnant. I'm standing still.
Okay.
So yeah.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Let's go back to the beginning. Let's go back to you as a little boy. And part of what got you going down this road was something that your wife said to you, and it was, "Why don't you want to come home?" But this practice started when you were just a little guy. Tell me about
Oh,
that.
yeah, yeah. So as we go back into childhood, and I'll give a little bit of background. I'm from the DMV area, outside of Maryland, right outside of Washington D.C. And I think for most people, I'm 39, so I grew up. I came up. My childhood was in the '80s, and during that time, there was a lot of this drug use going on. My family, my community was no different than those situations. And so for me, realizing what was happening at a young age was such a turning point in my life. Coming home and realizing, hey, this is a little different. Even though I live in a diverse community, this ain't happening over there. What's really going on? And almost having to investigate and learn and figure out what's happening in your family, what's happening around you and stuff. And so when we talk about like drug use and abuse and addiction and things like that, um, and for me, like I said, I think I was in fourth grade when I figured it out, when it all came together, you know, and that really was a hard year for me. And as a fourth grader, literally trying to figure out, what do you do with this information? What do you, now that you know what's going on, still not quite aware of all the details and what's really happening, but it's bad.
Okay.
You don't like it. I don't like how this feels. I don't like seeing the people around me, my fam. They don't look right. This don't seem right. You know, and having a crossroads. What do you do? And for me, that was the point where I said, I don't want to be like that. You know, and so go.
Let's get specific, because it wasn't that you didn't have a mom, it wasn't that you didn't have a dad, and you had brothers and sisters. It was just that their judgment and your family surrounding was shaky. As a matter of fact, you described your childhood as growing up in a crack house.
Yeah, when the people, that's where the gathering spot was.
Mm-hmm.
That was what we call the spot now.
Okay.
And really remember coming home from school and that feeling of, I don't want to go home.
Okay.
I know what's going on there. I do not want to be there. And like I said, part of that turning point for me was, like I said, there's people all around. My
Mm-hmm.
mom's was there, dad was back and forth. I knew he was and stuff like that. Like people in the community, like, but everybody's in the same situation, the same boat. And so there was really no one to turn to ask for help, to get guidance and things like that. In fact, it was almost a atmosphere of shame. And so you didn't
Mm.
want to talk to people. You couldn't really share because now you didn't want to be judged. Like I said, imagine going through that as a kid. Like I said, we're
Right.
talking about a child, learning pride and stuff like that. And so for me, it was, I'm going to do everything I could possibly do not to go home. And that meant first thing was school. That was the place I spent most of my days. I did a lot there. And so I turned all my focus there first, you know, being a good student, doing the work, staying in every after school program and club, anything I was allowed to do. And because nobody was really checking for me too much at home, I was allowed to do it. I had freedom. And so instead of being in the neighborhood, instead of running around, my first refuge was school, and turning to all the things that was part of education at that point. Um, and that was my drive. My motivation was to just, I'm gonna stay here. I'm gonna do this. When one club ended, when one group ended, what's the next one? Oh, I'll do that. Um, and that situation allowed me to grow in terms of just not just like we talk about the traditional books and things like that, but also it taught me about diversity. It taught me not just about the diversity in people, but also diversity in the world. All these different things I'm being exposed to now. What's that drama over there? Okay, what's that like? I used to be a part of every little club. I mean, we had the school bank. I was president of the school bank at the time. We was counting pennies and stuff. I was doing all kinds of stuff that I was being exposed to for the first time. And so for me, that started pulling me in a totally different direction of I'm learning about the world, you know? And so the more I did that, the less and less I definitely didn't want to go back home. The older I got, the more I saw, the more I started to realize. And it almost became a level of resentment at that point. I didn't like that. I ain't like them. I ain't want to be over there, you know? And so the older I got, creeping up, I got success at school. I was a great student, sports came along. I would play every sport I could. Anything I get my hands on, a ball, a stick, a bat, it didn't matter. I'm gonna try it. Then I found out I'm good at some of these too. All right, I can do this, you know, and all those things. So what it did was it pulled me out of the element. It pulled me away from home. It pulled me away from the neighborhood. And
Mm-hmm.
the people there, some of my friends who were my friends and stuff at the time, and because my eyes were being opened into the world, I started going that way, you know.
So it was almost like this situation that you grew up in became motivation for for you to be excellent and explore the world. So you didn't say, "Oh, I'm about to be a part of this foolishness." You said, "I'm gonna escape it any way I can, as long as I can."
Yeah, because I was exposed to the world and I saw what could be out there, you know. Whereas the flip side, a lot of my friends didn't get that. A
Okay.
lot of my homies in the neighborhood and stuff, even my family members, my sisters and them they didn't get that, So I would watch them go back to that, live
So
in
what
that
do you
environment.
mean? What do you mean? Why didn't your sisters have access to that?
They had access, they just didn't gravitate towards it. It
Okay.
wasn't what they were really exposed to. And that's why honestly I don't know what the difference was with me. I think it just took me, I was always kind of, I was always curious. I was always trying to learn something. Even in school, even at young kids, I was always the kid who I was the overachiever, really.
Okay.
Whereas, but when you went back to the neighborhood, back in those days, you would get made fun of if you was the smart kid,
Mm.
you know? And what kind of balanced me out was because I was a good athlete, because I was likable. I know I had friends, so like I didn't get teased like some of the other kids did. Plus, I was a big kid too, so you wasn't really teasing me without a problem. Um, but those are the things that kind of separated. And I saw that early on. I would watch like my friends was going home and they're like, "What you doing?" "I'm about to go back and do this." and they
Mm-hmm.
didn't understand it, so they were like, all right, whatever,
Mm-hmm.
but that started a separation and a rift between me and my friends at the time.
Mm-hmm.
Then I started hanging out with the other kids at school, the smart kids, what we would call them. But those were the kids in the club after school. Those were the kids that I started to learn and grow with. And I was like, I like them. I relate to them.
Okay.
So it was a good thing over there, but it started to cause issues back in the neighborhood. Started to cause
Mm.
issues in my own household. I was the kid who my own family members said I talk white. I was that
Okay.
kid who my family members would, call me. Till this day they still call me bougie. I don't care. They say it. Um, but
You bougie, Kenny.
I don't think so. But apparently I am.
I don't think you
I
bougie. I
don't
just
think
think
so.
I
But
think that you're a man with hustle and vision. That's what I think, but I don't know about bougie.
but what that showed me was that when people don't know the other side of the fence, they don't see what's going on over there, they don't understand it. It's easy to make fun of it. It's easy to dismiss it. Call it something else, and you can make fun and clown it over there because it's
Mm-hmm.
easier to do that than to try to understand it and try to learn about it. You know,
Mm-hmm.
and so those are
Oh wow! Wait a
yeah,
minute. Hold on. Say that again.
yeah, it is.
Say
It's
that
easy.
it's easier to make fun of than it is to learn about it and understand it.
Yeah, it is.
I feel like you just highlighted um, how people respond to their deep insecurities
Yeah,
and how people respond to growth and watching other people grow.
yeah,
They rather make you smaller than grow with you where you're going.
yeah. And that's something even till this day, me and Ryan still talk about those things, even as adults, even as men.
Wow.
We still have those conversations now. It's not even just a kid thing. We see that still till this day in adulthood.
Oh, it definitely happens in adulthood.
Yeah.
Ryan, what are your thoughts on what you're hearing right now? Uh-oh, we got to get this together. We got to get you off mute. You got to take yourself off mute.
Sorry about that, guys.
That's
But
okay.
but no, I hear a parallel journey. Me and Kenny, we talk about this all the time, and I think because our journeys are so parallel, it gives us quality conversation and fellowship between the two of us. And the when you're different from culture and you're different from the way that your family members are hurt, you come out of the household seeing what others just simply cannot see. And it takes courage to acknowledge what you can see, even
Mm-hmm.
though the ones around you cannot see it. And I think that's a bit of what Kenny is describing. He's describing the things that others could not see at the time. And Kenny had enough courage to act on the things that he could see, even though he didn't quite understand them all. He still did what he had the gut feelings to do, right? The intuition to do. And he did it well, even though he didn't understand it, right? He did it well operating in dark rooms. He did it well, even though, it took courage to go against, the majority of culture at that particular time. And I felt a lot of that, to be honest with you. And I think that's the reason why Kenny and I can relate to one another quite significantly.
Okay. I'm curious. Can you tell us just a little bit about your background as a child?
Sure. So I come from I am a child of alcoholics and drug addicts. My mother
Mm-hmm.
is in treatment this day. My father passed away from alcoholism and drug addiction when I was at the age of 6. My grandfather passed away when I was 8 years old. He was an alcoholic, but he passed away from brain cancer.
Mm.
And I had been torn away from my father's side of the family, which means I was initially the first and last king on my side,
Mm-hmm.
which means I had no reference points, which caused a great deal of anxiety in me. And all anxiety is the apex of fear, right?
Mm-hmm.
And for me, it was separation anxiety because I had been torn away from me, right? My father was supposed to teach me who I was. And because I didn't know what I was going to be in life early on, it caused a great deal of fear in me. How I was going to evolve, how I was going to make it, who am I really? I don't really know, right? But I do know I'm different, right? And when you mix that with, I know that I'm different, I don't fit in over there, but I don't quite fit in over here either. It causes a great deal of anxiety in you to figure out, how am I going to be? Who am I really? Right. And I think, as I grew up, the people that I thought would be quite solid in my life ended up not to be stable, stable influences in my life at all, which I do believe was by design. Because if I did have those influences, I would have ended up like those people.
Mm.
But it's hard to explain that to a young child. You just gotta have to play it out in order for you to get to where I am today. And those portions of life were difficult. I heard it put to me this way: hard times create good men, right? Strong men, and easy times produce weak men. And the hard times I had to go through has strengthened me a great deal, and has allowed me to do some great things in my life. And I have been able to give back because of them, right? Reach back for some of the young kings and mentorship, reach back for family members and other families, being able to provide perspectives and being able to communicate those perspectives without influence, without negative influence, right? And without bias. Being able to thoroughly explain fear to a man without him feeling insecure about it, right? Being able
Mhm.
to explain failure as a part of the journey. But a man coming from a broken household does not think he has the time to fail, which causes a great deal of anxiety and can rupture a journey quickly. But being able to tap a man into that level of life so that he can gain his ground has been, I think, my purpose. But I think uh, it's only a testimony to the way that I had to come up, right? Coming up away from, this is not who I am. I'm not a drug addict. I'm not an alcoholic. I don't think that, just like Kenny said, this is not the level of life that I agree with. I don't agree with this level of traumatic experiences. I don't think that life should be this way, right? But again, you don't fit in other circles either, right? So it casts you on quite a bit of cycles in your life, and as you cycle up, you start to try. You start. I mean, well, not try, but you start to figure out who you are. And the more and more you figure out who you are, the more and more life becomes a bit more clear. And you rationalize what you had to go through, as opposed to being angry at it, which allows for purpose to kind of shine its light through, which allows you to find purpose in your pain, and then allows you to go ahead and start to perform in your purpose.
Yeah. You see, that's why he's my guy. That's my bro.
That's your guy.
That's
That's
my
your guy.
bro.
Kenny, do you feel like you found purpose in your pain?
Yes, yes. And I feel like I'm still finding purposes. I don't think it's just one. I think so many avenues or so many things come from different levels of pain, different experiences that caused it. So for me, the first thing was, once I realized as a young man that I said I don't want other young people to go through what I went through.
Mm-hmm.
That started me on the path of mentorship, giving
Okay.
back to the young men, like Ryan calls the young kings. I love that. Um, but that was the first thing for me. How can I get in a space with them, develop relationships with them, and to now to be able to teach them some of these things, show them a different way, show them a different way of thinking, be a living example for them. So that was one way. Even as I grew into other things, it was how can we teach, you know? So finding different ways to educate other people, young men, men, even at this point too. Um, how can we collaborate? Like I said, because we come from situations where, collaboration, the first examples you see of collaboration is should be family.
Mm-hmm.
Should be your immediate family. But when you don't see that, you don't you don't get that step early on. So for me, I felt like I had to learn how to collaborate later. And so once
Mhm.
I got it and that light bulb went off, oh, and I see, oh, as a people, traditionally black people don't collaborate and work together. We got to show that too. And sometimes, so that for me, that's a big thing. That's why when I say I don't want to do it alone, that's the root of that stuff, you know, because I feel like we're not taught. It's something we come from these households, these situations. Those are some of the lessons we didn't get, you know,
Mhm.
and almost like we had to go back and learn and skip steps and stuff like that. The path was not linear for a lot of us. And so
Mhm.
that was one thing I learned. Talk about how do we work together, collaborate. Um, and even sometimes in things I think I see success in, my whole thing is how can we give back and show everyone how to do that? You know, so I don't like to hoard information. I don't like to hoard skills. My thing is no, giving it back. Show y'all how to do this so y'all can come along too, you know. So that's why, going back to what we said earlier, I do celebrate successes, I do, but my next thought is how I'm gonna package up and roll that back out, you know. So I learned things like that. We go into family, that's a whole nother show talking about learning to be a husband and a father. Another thing was too, I had to learn how to move within my own community, you know. And so all those lessons, that's what we are talking about as we begin to grow and grow into manhood. Those different avenues that we started to learn, and we say, hey, and that's why even, I tell you, one of the things we do as men in our groups and our conversations, we share so many ideas,
Mhm.
and we just pop up with ideas and we get so excited. Hey, we can do this. Yo, we can do that, because that's our way of applying what we're learning, giving back and things like that. We get excited when we get a new skill. We learn something, an accolade or something like that, because our next conversations are we talking amongst each other about how can we share that? What can we do with that? Um, and so to me, that's a big part of who I am, because of the pain, the past trauma, the brokenness. But we're applying it now.
Okay. So I'm listening to what Ryan had to say and Kenny, what you had to say. And what I'm gathering is that you had to be trailblazers. That's what you have to be. And it seems that to me that needs to be the number one skill that you are cultivating within yourself, as well as teaching other people that are coming up behind you. Although you might you might get a little you might get a little leeway. The difference between a trailblazer is that the path might not be clearly laid out before them. The likelihood of being able to get advice from someone that is near you is slim to none. And you may not see someone who's done what you're doing before that came from where you came from. And that might just seem like something trivial, but it's not, because there's something powerful about legacy. I mean, just look at some of our starlets of today that are standing on the shoulders of those we watched become magnificent. Blue Ivy is not going to want for nothing. No, not never on in any given day. I believe, doesn't she already have a Grammy?
Yeah, yeah.
Right. There's another. What's this gentleman's name? The guy who makes makes it. His daughter already. Her name is trademarked, and I believe she has some copyright. Some things copyrighted under her name. DJ Khaled. There
Oh,
you go.
yeah. Both his kids. Yeah,
Yeah, okay, both of his
yeah.
kids. And so that is the benefit of legacy. that somebody's already thinking about your future and planning for your future prior to you beginning to have a desire of your own. I mean, Jamie Foxx's daughter, although she is very talented, had she been Joe Blow's average pretty daughter, she would not necessarily have already have the credits that she does under her name. So there is something special about having the path laid out for you. But somebody has to blaze the trail.
Yeah, yeah, and it's it's a tough road, like I said, because you think you see roadmaps, you think they're out there, but like it's really a unique journey for all of us, right? Um,
Mm-hmm.
but I think the thing with that is because you want it so bad. I wanted it so bad. I still want it so bad, because I think legacy is a big thing. I tell you, since I don't know the last couple of years, it's been a big thing that's on my mind. Again, as a father, I got daughters. I got 3 daughters. Talking about the blue ivy thing. I don't want my daughters to want for anything.
Mm-hmm.
First motivation was I don't want them to grow up and see the things I had to as a child. My
Mm-hmm.
whole motto was let the children be children, you know,
Mm.
and I wanted that. Um, and so it was okay, go get it. The problem with that was you're stumbling, you making mistakes. Like me and Ryan talk about all the time. Like you got blind spots. I use your word, Ryan. But there's spots where you don't know what you don't know. You make mistakes, and a lot of times there's some negative in that too because for me there's a lot of situations where there wasn't anyone to correct me.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you don't have the OG, don't have the pop, the father, the family to say, hey, nah, you don't want to do it that way, XYZ.
Mm-hmm.
One of the issues I came across was that and this is one thing I talk about a lot is when you're like the most successful person in your family, right? Everyone's looking towards you for everything, the guidance, sometimes the support, the resources, all those things. But the problem is no one's there to correct you. No one's there to come alongside you and teach you some of those moments. So when you stumble hard. When you make mistakes, a lot of times you don't see it right away and you end up beating your head against the wall because you're making that mistake several times, you know? And so I found those challenges. And it was like I was finding myself stuck in the mud in the same situation over and over again, some seasons of my life, and then trying to search for answers, but just like searching in the dark. I'm just reaching for something, but I don't know what's out there. I don't even know what I'm really looking for, But now I have a huge responsibility because I now got a whole bunch of people that are depending on me. So I'm trying 3 times as hard to keep going. But again, I'm searching in the dark. I'm going 100 miles an hour in darkness, you know? Um, and so as you're trying to build legacy, you're trying to do those things. You really, I really took some hard hits to come out
Mm.
of that stuff,
Let's
Um,
talk about that. Um, if you're just now joining us, we are here with Kenny Wilson. He is sharing how he was a crack addict baby, but now mentors young men. He is the founder and CEO of Men of Stature. He happens to be a best-selling author along with his friend Kenny here, who is also an author, both coming from backgrounds that include drugs and alcohol abuse, and understanding that they had to get beyond the history that they were attached to become excellent men in the present. Kenny, tell us something, a situation where you made a huge mistake and you had to figure out how to get out of that.
um, finances. Let's try finances.
Finances. Okay, it happened in
Yeah,
the
that's a big one. Oh man, yeah, because early on, okay, I can tell you this. This is crazy, right? Um, I remember, I think I was like 19, 20, needed a car, trying to get back and forth to work. I go to get a car. No one has taught me about the loan process and car notes and things like that. So I'm just going in dark again, trying to figure it out. But I'm thinking I'm smart enough, I'm savvy enough. First thing I found out, I went into that situation. I already had bad credit. Didn't realize
Mm.
I had credit. Coming to find out, my mom had taken out some bills and put some bills and stuff in my name as a kid. Didn't pay the bills, so I had outstanding bills at like 18 years old. I didn't even know nothing about. Um, so I had to learn and go figure out what is the process for all that stuff. How do I get this? No one had ever talked about credit. No one had ever really sat down and talked about finances. You learn a little stuff in school, but like learned real fast. There's a whole nother world out there, you know. And so I really felt like I went into the game. If I'm playing basketball, I'm down 2 3 points. I'm starting the game off in deficit in the hole. You know,
Mm.
that's like starting the football game off, and I'm already down the touchdown, and we haven't even started the game yet.
So your mom had used your
Yeah.
name. She had
Yep.
already ruined your name. That is very common
Yep.
when you are coming from a situation where the parents are derelict. I just have to say it. They come from a derelict mindset, a derelict situation. They have already ruined their name, and then they ruin the future of their child, or at least make it twice as hard because they have already put a gas bill, electric bill, and a rent-a-center refrigerator in their name and failed to pay for it.
Yeah. And like I said, now I see it, and that's it's survival tactics. And I get it now, but at 18, 19 years old, I didn't understand any of that.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even understand it was possible till I saw it. I had to go like figure. I thought it was a lie at first. You know,
Mm-hmm.
so trying to go through that process, confirm, and so you learn a lot once you get out there. But I really felt like that part of I spent a lot of part of my young adult life learning and trying to figure out finances. Trying to figure out money, manage money. I really feel like I didn't get a decent grasp of it probably till I was getting married. I got married at like 27, you know? And so that led to me feeling really inadequate as I was getting older. You know,
Mm-hmm.
I was already coming from a situation where I didn't have a safety net. I didn't have someone to go pull. I couldn't go ask for money, support, or anything. I had to get it myself at this point. And so to go into those situations, you know, not feeling like I had it, not feeling like I understood what was going on. It's hard to sit and you go into a bank, you go into a car dealership, you go into those places and you really feel like you're at their mercy. And you're trying as a man, you were taught to play it off, act like you know what you're talking about. And in your head, you're trembling, you know? And so those situations really, that was a really, really big struggle for me, to the point now where like you talk about money and me now, I'm kind of cheap. I try to save everything. I don't really play with it like that. I'm real stern with it, but it came from a root. There was a root to it. So
Wow.
that was a big thing. Yeah, money. I can tell you right off the bat, that was a big one for me.
Ryan, how does that situation hit you, and can you relate to any of it? You got to get off mute. You got to get off mute.
I don't know how to. I'm sorry, but absolutely. Just going back to the trailblazing comment, I can absolutely relate to that because, Kenny, you said it's a hard road. I don't believe there's a road at all.
Yeah,
We're making it, and it's very difficult because as we have to go through the entire process of making the road for others to follow. And it's a very difficult, strenuous process where you are introduced with you're introduced with how broken you are. We don't know yet how hurt we are. We're just simply surviving coming out of those traumatic situations that we were in. And as we come out of those traumatic situations, we learn how broken we are. It's like opening up a big box of pain. Filtering through all of that pain is very traumatic all in itself. Healing hurts.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
Healing hurts. And as we heal first, before we begin to even trailblaze that road, and then we have to become accountable. That's a hard pill to swallow. I have to become accountable for the mistakes of my fathers and fathers' fathers. To me, I found that to be a bit unfair. So now I'm wrestling with anger as well,
yeah,
right? And there is a process before the process even starts. when we're talking about trailblazing. And then, when we come up to some of the mistakes that we have to make, that we will make, as we are trailblazing, yes, a lot of those mistakes we take hard
Yeah.
because again, we're operating off of a false expectation, right? We weren't in stable households, right? So, we make a picture in our mind as to how we believe our futures should look and how we feel we should get there. But because they are unrealistic expectations, whenever we fall short from what we had in our heads, we begin to take that very hard. So minor mistakes become huge mistakes to us. And then the huge mistakes are even catastrophic,
Yeah.
right? And because we were never taught how to get over those mistakes coming from broken households, we're struggling with them all, right? So we end up in ruts and we end up dealing with mistakes longer than what we should, right? We don't forgive ourselves. So now we got to go and learn a little bit more about ourselves on how to forgive ourselves and how to fail and how to allow failure to be an interpretation of some of the things that we have to try, that we're trying to do, right? Allowing failure to be a map for us. There's so much there, Kenny, that you just explained, and there's so many layers to it. This is where the joy in mentorship comes in, because we had to go down all of these paths in the dark.
Yeah.
But we get a chance to go back and bring other men and other women through with a beacon of light. My failures, they were drastically bigger than to me, right? Pain is relative. They were drastically bigger to me than they were to other people.
Yeah.
I used to take some of my failures so hard, but my wife is like, "You're doing great,"
Mm-hmm.
you know. And for me, Kenny, you speak about finances. Well, that's where my career has been. Being a mortgage loan officer. You know, one of the things that I've had to learn is about credit. But no one ever taught me about credit. I'm in my 30s learning about credit.
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
and no, my father didn't walk me into the bursar's office, right? So that I didn't accumulate all of that student loan debt. That was not something that I had to do, but I had no education, right? And then on the flip side to that, on the back end of all of that, once I have the degree, okay, so how do you be strategic with the debt? Right?
Yes.
Because there's still a way that you can still be strategic with all of that student loan debt so that you can still accomplish some of the things that your average Joe American is still accomplishing. But when you know better, you do that better. But when there's nobody to tell you, you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
Right? So some of my mistakes were huge to me, but they weren't to everyone else. But some of my mistakes, which were huge to me, turned out to be gems to the other people that were behind me.
Yes.
So it's all relative, but to me, yes, they have been very impactful, very painful at times, and sometimes I've gotten stuck in them. Sometimes I've almost drowned in shallow water, right? And all I really had to do was just stand up.
Yeah.
Because I didn't know how to navigate through those shallow waters. I almost drowned. But I've learned that my mistakes were never as bad as I made them out to be.
I have a question for you, Ryan. When your wife said you're doing great, did that mean as much to you as when you got you're doing great or attaboy from another man?
Mm.
Well, I'll say this. Until I had gone through a few humility processes, I wouldn't accept it from another man.
Wait a minute, break
And I
that
wouldn't
down
even
for us.
accept it from my wife
Yeah.
either.
Yep. Yep.
So it had nothing to do with the gender of who was giving me the compliment. I
Mm-hmm.
was never taught how to be loved as a young boy coming up in the crack
Mm-hmm.
epidemic. So because of it, I didn't learn how to receive compliments. I didn't learn how to receive pats on the back. I
Mm-hmm.
did not have any of that coming up, right? Everyone else was consumed with their own pain and turmoil. So I
Mm-hmm.
just figured out how to survive, put my
Yeah.
feelings in my back pocket, never express them, and you just get through the way you get through. But I never learned how to receive a compliment. So no matter whether it came from my wife, or it came from a peer, I still didn't know how to receive it and look at myself that way.
Mm-hmm.
It took breaking. I had to be broken. The person that I had developed into needed to be cracked in half in order for me to develop into someone else. And once that breaking had taken place, as traumatic as it was, then I had become receptive to some of the compliments that would begin to come my way, right? You know, whether that's from my wife, right? Learning how to be a softer but still strong man, or whether that was coming from another man, right? Where I'm not taking it as a competition or taking it as a discipline or taking it as whatever it may be. I'm not looking for the underlining politics in the comment. I'm just receiving it because that's who I am, because I know who I am.
Okay, so that's breaking it down a little bit for me. When you used to receive a compliment, you used to look for the politics behind it.
Absolutely.
Oh yeah.
What did you mean by that?
Okay.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely. Because it was something that had been foreign to me. It was almost like Spanish coming
Mm,
up in
Yep.
an English. Yes. That's
Yep.
what trauma does. You would look at that comment, receive that comment through a distorted vision, which was pain.
mhm.
Pain fogged everything up. And you did not know how. The sky just simply was not blue. That's the easiest way I know how to put it.
Yeah. And then also through not trusting because you didn't know how to trust. So
Right.
you're looking at everybody sideways too. So
Yep.
people give you a compliment, you looking at them like what you really mean, like what you trying to say. Like
Mm-hmm.
you almost get defensive. The walls and stuff go up, even in those situations, you know.
Yep.
I even go back to like the wife situation. Like I would beat myself up so much that no matter what she said, sometimes I was still like, nah, I don't believe it. Nah, that's not
Yep.
how I feel. No, I need to feel, you know. So I couldn't
Mm-hmm.
even like I needed, you know, it didn't matter what she said at that point. You know, I would really be in a funk, even the littlest things, like because you come to, like I said, you have to be feeling like you have to be perfect. And when I made a mistake, it was like catastrophic, you know.
Yep.
It like you felt inadequate. You felt sometimes I would feel like, you know, stupid sometimes, like I beat myself. Oh, I shouldn't have. I knew better. And days, and I would be in a funk, and then my whole attitude changed, and then the whole air in the house is crazy. Like, you know, that took time to really come out of that. That took a lot of help. Um,
Yeah. It was backwards thinking for me because the more she reached for me, the more she told me, you know, it's okay, the more I said to myself, I must really be broken or I
mm,
must have really made a huge mistake. The
Mhm.
more she has to feel like she has to tell me, the more or the bigger to me it had become,
mm,
right? And instead of allowing her to nurture me into greatness, I would run from her nurturing because I never received it as a child from my mother.
What? So you would run from your wife's nurturing.
Without question.
Mm. What did that look like? What did that look like? What did she experience?
4 hour drives instead of going in the house,
mm.
right,
Yep.
Kenny? We
Yep.
talked about that,
Yep.
right? Going to the gym, standing
Yep.
there all night long instead of going home,
Yep.
right? You know, it can look a couple of different ways, you know, distracting yourself, right?
Mhm.
Procrastination, not wanting to focus on the issue, being passive when it came to some of the problematic circumstances that we had faced. You know, it had come in various forms, but
Yep.
I didn't know how to identify them then. You know, as I mentioned, you know, cycles and processes and a bunch of humility processes for me to understand this correctly, to
Mhm.
understand that I was going backwards. You know, I was looking through life. I was looking at life through a distorted lens. That lens was smudged with pain,
Mm,
you know, and everything I saw through a broken perspective.
This piece right here, this heartache, mind attack, distorted worldview is not often talked about, but so commonly experienced.
yes.
Yes.
Okay, because over and over and over, how many times have you heard, He's pushing me away. She's pushing me away. He doesn't want to talk about our problem. She doesn't want to talk about our problem. It is almost like the thing that is happening in relationships that is causing everything else to go wrong.
So can I just make a comment to that? This is exactly what I meant when I said, Kenny, once we trailblaze, right, we make our road after we've gone through all of the processes that we needed to gone through for that particular season of purpose. That's when we go back with that beacon of light.
Yep.
That's where the mentorship comes in. That's where I can come back and give you a different perspective on what you're feeling and what you're realizing or what you're starting to see, right?
Mhm.
That's where I'm just simply tilting your head to the left. And once you see, you can't unsee,
Yeah.
right? What if you looked at it this way, right? And when you do that for some folk, it's like seeing a whole new world.
Yeah.
I swear, right? Some people are not, even though they're in the same level of pain, they're processing it differently, right?
Mhm.
So now while they're in pain, they're experiencing a whole nother level of acceleration. And now they find themselves moving out of the painful circumstances or seasons of their life because of the way that you've tilted their head just slightly to the left, or you've cleaned off their lens a little bit with that pain, or you've taught them how to rationalize with the level of accountability that they have to, become equipped with and accustomed to, because there is no other way.
Yeah.
Right. And when you have a why connected to the amount of pain that some of these folks have to go through, folks like you and I, Kenny, that becomes your power. Your why becomes stronger than your willpower.
Yeah.
Right. That's when your why begins to fuel you past what will was ever, ever able to do.
Yeah. Oh man, when you start talking about like, men, because I did this too. Like I said, when you're beating yourself up, you're in pain, you're hurting, you're rationalizing it, saying, like, I don't want her, I don't want my partner, I don't want my wife, you know, to experience that. I don't, and so you start pushing away, you start avoiding, you start finding excuses and things like that to try not to deal with it, and this also can be embarrassing. Sometimes you're embarrassed, like, because you don't feel like you measure up, you don't
Yeah.
feel like you're handling your business, you're doing the things you're supposed to do, or you don't know what you're supposed to know. And so for them, it's like, I don't want to subject them to that, or I got to find a way to handle that, or she doesn't understand what I'm going through at this moment. She never had to deal with this, you know? And so those things start that separation. And then you start asking those questions, like you were saying, Coach Love, why don't they talk to me? Why don't they share? It's not time. It's not, sometimes it's not that we don't want to, we just don't know, or we just so hurt and so focused on the inside and trying to figure it out ourselves. And like you said, literally laying down the road, that it's hard to even turn to the side and even deal with your partner, look at your partner, talk to your partner.
Yeah.
This is a part of the interview I'm just going to go back and watch, because it is at the foundation and breaking point and frustration of so many relationships and identity. You can't even get in a right relationship with yourself if you have this kind of thinking. And so often, nature is going to take place. Why am I saying that? Is because people get into romantic situations because they have primal desires, and now they're stuck in a situation where they actually do have a connection, but the connection is distorted, and violence, frustration, uh, anger can come from just this very point. Just this very point of having a distorted identity of who you are and what your place is in the world, based off of a completely false expectation. And for me, this is foundational work. that has to be done. It is foundational work. And so I got to get a therapist or a psychologist or someone to watch this part of the video and help us unpack it, because I really do feel like we need to go further and deeper into this to find out what else is under these particular concepts and ideas. I feel like we just got to do that. I do want to take a quick break and lift up ACEs Matter. They are an organization that looks at adverse childhood experiences. We'll be right back on the other side.
If you have a birthday coming up, or maybe you'd just like to do something for the greater good, please consider starting a personal fundraiser on Facebook and selecting ACEs Matter as your cause. Need a reason? Well, we have 3 just for you. ACEs Matter helps families in need cover the cost of mental health services. ACEs Matter hires local contractors and even stay-at-home parents who need flexible work schedules. We care about humanity, and ACEs Matter provides free training and education to those who've been affected by childhood trauma. It's easy to set up a donation campaign from your Facebook account. From your phone or internet browser, type or search www.facebook.com/fundraisers. Select nonprofit, search for ACEs Matter, type in how much money you'd like to raise, choose an end date, give your fundraiser a catchy title, edit the default description if you'd like, then click Create. Congratulations! Now you can invite your friends, share on your timeline, and raise money for a great cause. For every ACE story told, an ACE can be prevented. 2 heartbeats from our house to yours.
ACEs Matter is a 501c3 nonprofit organization. EIN 85-124-6674.
I love that organization, and I really do appreciate everything that we've had the opportunity to talk about tonight. One of the things that I think is important for people to understand is that it's not a one and done thing. You guys meet how often? How often are you guys meeting together?
Oh, I mean, if we're doing the spaces, we try to get that going at least. We used to try to do it, bi-weekly things like that. Even when life it was virtual, especially with the pandemic. Just recently, I started working with another organization where they're doing it on Tuesdays, once a week. So again, even collaboration in that. But even for us, this goes outside of men of stature. I talk to Ryan several times a week.
Mm-hmm.
We'll talk and call and text on the phone and things like that. And even with some of the other brothers that have been in the group, we've kind of got to the point where it's like, we grew outside the space almost. And so
Good.
even though, yeah. So even though it started there, now it's brotherhood, because we allowed that space to happen. We allowed ourselves to do this and communicate and trust each other, trust ourselves and things like that, where, like that, I got an issue. If I need something, I can call Ryan directly. We don't
Mm-hmm.
wait for the space, but we had to build that. So, I say that to say, yes, technically we do get together on a regular basis, bi-weekly. We try to get to as much as possible, but, we've built the community of men where if we need, we're here.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That's beautiful. Ryan, what are you receiving from the connection with these other men in Kenny?
Well, I hate to mention the cliche, misery loves company.
Mm-hmm.
But it really is. It's one of those things where you have camaraderie in your pain.
Mm.
You're not so alone, and you're not the only one that you feel like a lot of times you're the only one going through what you're going through.
Mm-hmm.
And when you know that there's another man dealing with some of the same issues, right, and you start to learn that it's not just me. Right. It kind of fuels you a little bit, and energy's transferable. That's one of the hugest things that most don't understand. Energy speaks before the mouth does. And when you're received in the manner in which the group has received me, it's fueling. I am allowed at times where I'm not able to see, like, I mention it all the time, Kenny, when you're in mud, everything is brown.
Yeah.
So during those moments, those are the guys that fuel me, and I'm able to feed off of their energy. The encouragement that they're able to give, the perspectives in which I cannot grab at those particular times. That's the way that you benefit from groups like this.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And can I even throw in there too? The foundation of that group was really the foundation of the book Black Men Love.
Okay.
That's where it really started. It started because we came together and we were talking and sharing in some of those topics, and it was like, yo, we got to get this out there. And how do we get that out there? And so for me, it was like, that's the mission. How do I get this? And so for me, it was I got to get them to come together, and most of the men in that the group are in the book, And so for me, it was dual purpose to know, no, we can share this, the
Mm-hmm.
stories, the experiences, what we're talking about. But then it was a community thing for me because how can I put my boys on too? How can I
Okay.
help them out? So, but that's where it really started. We were having those conversations. I know, Ryan, you remember those conversations. And I tell y'all, we be out there midnight, 1 o'clock, 2 a.m.
Hmm.
on Zoom, talking and sharing and pouring and stuff. Like we spent a lot of time, and it was like, so to see that process start there, here we are with Black Men Love. For me, it's been such an incredible journey. You know,
It's incredible and it's important. I will tell you this though. I listen to your stories and I think about my grandfather. My grandfather had to leave home at 13 years old. He went from Mississippi and he traveled the roadways on a train. I think about what his life must have been like. He left home as just a boy, but somehow he picked up values and standards along the way, and he made a family for himself. He went blind uh, in his 50s, and there were men that came alongside of him and made sure that everything was everything. So from 13 to in his 50s, he somehow managed to make connections to where the house that he bought always stayed standing. And I mean that um, physically, as in the actual physical house, and I also mean that emotionally and mentally. So if I fast forward that to now and in present times, what's happening and what's the difference? I would say now it is just as likely or even more likely for there to be a organization or an identity dangled in front of a young man's face that is going to use the power and purity of his masculinity for bad versus good. Okay, so there is somebody asking a young man to sell drugs, to sell his body, or to sell his soul. And when I say sell his soul, I mean use his mentality for some nefarious purpose. Some slick way of making a quick buck. And they do that by creating brotherhood and camaraderie for the purpose of negativity. What I really enjoy about what you're doing, I feel as if it's going back to the days of old. There were, and there still are, um, different organizations built on strong foundations to lift people up, but they're just not as popular and they're not as modern. Okay. You guys are doing what you're doing in a modern way, and you're doing it in a way that makes it accessible to the current mindset. And so I celebrate you for that. I want you to keep doing it. and I want it duplicated, is what I'd like to see. And so I'm thankful for that. Gentlemen, do you have any closing remarks? Actually, Kenny, I am going to start with Ryan, and I'm going to give you the last word, my dear sir.
Okay.
Well, it's been a pleasure just speaking to you all about life. Life has taught me a lot. My faith has taught me a lot. I have not been a Baptist, but I haven't been to church in 25 years. But the bulk of my faith has been strictly off of relationship. And Father has walked with me. So I cannot tell you that this has been all me. I have been, in his presence and under his leadership for quite some time. And I'll say that, I am where I am because of grace and mercy. So I am extremely grateful. And I'm also grateful to have, reached some of God's relationships that he's connected me to, like a Kenneth Wilson.
All right. Kenny.
Um, I at this point, I think anybody's listening, anybody's watching this. If you're going to take anything away from this, is I go back to one, love. Start with love yourself, your journey. Know that it's tough. It may be tough at times, but like you said, God's grace, love. Surround yourself with good people. Surround yourself with good community. Seek out good people. If you see someone, they seem like good people, seek them out. We need each other. I need people. I need Ryan. I need my brothers. I need my family. And so I think start with those things. We're talking about this stuff. I know this stuff is hard. It's painful. But you stay the course. Build the road. I like what you said, Ryan. We're building the road. Yes, we may have to build it. But once it's built, now they have the path, you know? So that's when we talk about legacy. That's when we talk about, you know, completing the goals and the tasks and things like that. Know that whatever you're going through right now, you are building a road. Sometimes it seems hard, but the road will be built, and for me, that's what drives me, to know that I'm still building it. I'm still building it. But everyone that comes behind, everyone that comes after, we bring them along the journey. They will have it there. It's not going to go anywhere. It will be built. So again, I thank you, Ryan. I'll say this again. I love you, bro. It's important for me to say that to you. It's important, Coach Love. Thank you. We do our thing, and I appreciate you, your
Yeah.
platform, everyone who's supporting the platform. Again, thank you all so much. And I think, to me, share this information. The crime for me is that we go through all of this, like I said before, we go through all of this stuff in life, and we don't share any of it. No one learns, no one grows for this. So for me, it's like, what's the point? And so that's why I continue to share, continue to talk amongst each other. And thank you all so much.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Oh, my goodness. Kenny and Ryan, you have been just a pleasure to have around this evening. I continue to thank my audience, Epic Understanding. We certainly live, learn, and love together. It is fabulous. It is fabulous for me, and you are feeding my heart and my soul. Today, what I really take away from the conversation is do not drown in shallow water. The bogus expectations should not steal your brilliance. We cannot let that happen. Be ready to be a trailblazer because you might not have what someone else has. We have in our heart that someone is going to show up for us. We have in our heart that this person has a family and this person has a dad. And we want that for ourselves. And it's not that we shouldn't want that for ourselves, but we might be the person responsible for blazing the trail. Don't bury your brilliance because of bogus expectations. Don't forget to hang out with us this weekend. I promise it's going to be good. The Men's Mental Health Summit at 12 p.m. Central Standard Time, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time is going to be the place to be. Bye-bye for now, and I'll see you next time. Guys, hang out for a moment.